Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome. And thanks for joining us today. So my name is Simone and I'm community manager with the OED marketing team. And I'm delighted to be joined today by my colleagues for a demonstration of all the OED can offer to your library users. And now, without further ado, let's start with a round of introductions. So in no particular order, I'm going to prompt people as I see you on my screen. So Dr. Danica Salazar, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Danica Salazar, and I am Executive Editor for World Englishes for Oxford Languages.
Thank you. Ellie, could you please introduce yourself now?
Thank you, Simone. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ellie Hawkes, and I am the Product Manager for the OED.
Now I'm moving on to Bea.
Hi, good morning. So I'm an account manager here in Oxford University Press for the UK market. I will cover the accounts in east, south of England, more or less.
Thank you. And last but not least, Jed, please introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm Jed Welford. I'm the area sales manager in the UK and Ireland for everything non-academic, government, schools, public libraries, national libraries, etc.
So the question that we have there now is this one. Hi, I would like to know if there is any limitation to save search, how many results I could save, and thank you a lot. So thank you for your question.
Yeah, I can answer that one. What the Save Search does is it essentially stores a link in that personal profile page back to the search that you have saved. So it doesn't matter how many results within each search. It will just save a link to recreate that search. We do cap the number of saves that you can make to, I think, fairly high, to about 100. Our research shows that the vast majority of people only save kind of fewer than 5. But yeah, we do set a cap there. But within each search that you save, there's no limit on what you can actually save.
Ellie, am I correct in thinking that there's no limit to the number of searches that you can run?
No, yeah, there's no limit to the number of searches. You can run as many as you like.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and the other question we've got there is this one. Hi, is it possible to share a saved search?
Yep, so all the kind of parameters within your search, so the word that you searched for and any filters that you might have applied, are all present in the URL for that specific search. So all you need to do is copy and paste that URL to whatever you want to share to.
Okay, thanks. And the person who asked the first question is just saying, that's a lot. Thank you for your answer. We've had lots of comments of people saying that because we asked in the registration what they would like to know more about. So people really asking about the features of the OED, which I think we covered in the presentations, and also how users can benefit in academic users, I think, also covered by Danica in her presentation. But Danica, there was one particular question asking that, of course, the OED covers humanities subjects, but is there any instance where it would benefit other types of research as well that you are aware, like from disciplines not inside the humanities? I know you mentioned the case study that that is not exactly in linguistics, but it was research in the field of law. So that was outside linguistics, but still within the realm of humanities. But I wonder if there was anything you could comment about that. No worries if not. It was just because it was in one of the comments.
I think in the presentation, the last case study that we highlighted was the use of the OED in an academic research article on international law. So I think that many law firms actually subscribe to the OED because lawyers find it useful to have access to the OED's information on the meanings of words, since it's a very central part of interpreting different what words mean is very important when arguing cases. So that's one use of the OED that outside of linguistics that is quite interesting. I've also been involved in studies in using the OED in anthropology, in medical anthropology specifically. So I remember 3 years ago during the pandemic, there were some studies using the OED's research on the vocabulary that arose during the early days of COVID. And how we can interpret that through the lens of medical anthropology, and how we communicate medical information, and what we can do to make it more effective. So it means, the thing is that language is something that's that is part of all aspects of life, not just linguistics. So really anything that anyone wants to study that involves language or language history can be researched using the data that's available in the OED.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the research involving the language of COVID-19 is a very good example. Thank you. We do have another question there. Here it goes. How useful do you believe the OED can be in terms of research for translation purposes?
I haven't looked at this one specifically. So as you know, of course, English is an English dictionary, so it's not bilingual at all. But of course, Oxford Languages provides a number of bilingual dictionaries and other lexical resources beyond the OED. But I can imagine, though, that the OED can be useful in checking, that the historical information in the OED can be useful in checking the accuracy of translations, especially when translating a historical text in another language. It would be useful to see. Of course, a translator of today would know how to translate the current language. But if you're translating something that's particularly like historical, either historical or written in a or is written in a way that seems to be historical, that the OED will be useful in checking, okay, what would be the equivalent of these words in the relevant time period in English. So something that's very easy to find out using the OED.
Yeah, and well, you know more about this than me, but I imagine that the wide coverage that we've got now on world Englishes can be very useful for in the field of translations as well, because there are so many borrowings nowadays that translations need to take that into consideration, that not everything will be exactly translated into English, but you can look at all the borrowed language that it's included in English.
Yeah. Exactly, that's a good point. But also it's a good moment to highlight as well that a lot of people get that confused. So when we say Maori words in the OED or Spanish words in the OED, a lot of people tend to think, oh, but the OED isn't supposed to be an English dictionary. Why is it including all of these foreign words? But the point is that the OED is an English dictionary. So if words are from other languages are adopted or included in the OED, that means that we have found sufficient evidence of these words being used in English. So they have effectively become English words. And in that process, there could be some changes that have happened to the word, because borrowings aren't always faithful. So sometimes in the process of borrowing, words change spelling, they change meaning. So there could be some differences between how a word is recorded in the OED as an English word and how the word is actually used or spelled, or what it means in the source language. So people should be aware of that as well, because you get a lot of questions sometimes about, oh, this is a Spanish word and it's spelled this way in Spanish. Why is it spelled like this in the OED? Well, because it's not being represented in the OED as a Spanish word, but as an English word, which has undergone a change in spelling in the process of being borrowed into English.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's that can be very useful for the person who answered the question, because they have actually put a comment in the chat saying that it's for research when translating into English from other languages.
Yeah.
So I hope that answered your question.
But also, I mean, speaking, there's also the concept of what people call untranslatable words, right? So sometimes you may find using the OED that you don't even need to translate the word because it's already been borrowed into English with the same sense. So that's also be information that's useful when translating something, because sometimes there are concepts that's just hard to find a direct equivalent in English. So what we do is that we just borrow it directly, and sometimes there's not even a need to translate because
Exactly.
the OED already records the word being used as it is in English.
Yeah, thanks for confirming. This was my thinking around when the World Englishes Hub came to mind. I'm actually going to ask to one of my colleagues behind the scenes to get the link to the World Englishes Hub, because it can be useful for people interested in translations.
A couple of other things that might be useful on OED. So the first one, which we haven't really covered in the presentation because I think we've got a separate presentation about it coming up, that's the historical thesaurus of the OED. You can use that to find kind of historical synonyms of a word. So if you're kind of struggling to work out really the correct word to match the sort of translation that you're doing, then browsing the historical thesaurus might help there. It's kind of categorized into different subject areas. So if you want to kind of look around the subject of food or transport or society, then you could use that. The other thing that you could do on advanced search is that you can search within definitions. So if you know what a word means, but you don't know what the actual word is, then you could try searching within the definition text for something like dark orange, say, and that would return words that include the words dark orange within their definition, which might help you just kind of pinpoint precisely the word that you're looking for.
Thanks, Elliot. That's also a very good point to raise. And we do indeed have a presentation in the planning that will cover the historical thesaurus. That's not announced yet, but it will be at some point in the new year. But in the meantime, we do have some video guides that cover that as well. So I'll move on to the next question, but in the meantime, I'll also ask one of my colleagues to get the link to where we've got the video guides, because that can be useful as well. And that there is one about the historical thesaurus. So oh yeah, and the person who asked is saying that that's useful and they will look into the historical thesaurus. So yeah, thank you. And now we've got this one. So can one have an individual subscription instead of an institutional one? And what is the implication in terms of cost? So I believe this is a question for Jed and Bear.
I note that Peter is from Kenya, and I've had a quick look and seen that in the UK, the pricing is £56 for 3 months or £100 for 12 months. And so I imagine that is going to be similar across the world. But what I may do, if it's okay, is paste a link to that page here, shall I? And then Peter can kind of navigate the regional aspect of that.
Also, I wanted to bring up, while we give time for people to add more questions if they have any, and I believe this would be one for you, Ellie, because someone mentioned in the comments that they would be interested in knowing more the advantages about creating a personal account as opposed to not having a personal account. I know you covered this in your presentation, but I wonder if there was anything else you could comment around that.
Yeah, so creating a personal account really just means that you can sort of save your searches and save your preferences, so you're not having to kind of repeat them every time you use OED. So yeah, you can run those searches and save them to your profile. That essentially, as I say, stores the links to those searches in a single location for you. You can also set your display preferences. So if you want to default to having that more linear presentation of the entries, which is we term the untabbed view, you can set a preference there. You can also set a preference to always show every quotation instead of just the first and last, which is the default behavior. And we are looking at other kind of preferences that you might want to utilize in that view as well. You can also use it to sign up to the OED newsletter as well. So if you create an account there, you can say that you'd like communications from us, and that's a really good way of hearing more about what is coming up for the OED as well. And if you are an individual, as opposed to a librarian representing an institution, you can also create your account there to then go on to purchase a subscription if you want to as well.
Thanks, Ellie. And just to complement, if you sign up to the marketing communications, that means that you get the OED newsletter. So that means you will get notified about upcoming virtual events and other OED related things.
I'd just like to expand on a question that was asked earlier that might be useful.
Course.
So somebody asked if you can share your saved searches. And I would just like to check what happens and whether they can be shared with people who don't have subscription access.
Yeah, so you don't need to have logged into your subscription in order to run a search. So all that happens is that if you share that link to someone who does not have a subscription, they will still see those search results that you have shared. If they then do not have a subscription, if they attempt to click on one of those actual results to go to an entry, they'll be met with that paywall screen, which will prompt them to sign into a subscription or purchase a subscription if they don't have one already. So you're kind of stopped at that point if you don't have a subscription, but you can still see the search results.
Thanks, Jed. That was a good point. I didn't know that, so thanks for asking. Right, so I just wanted to say a big thank you to the presenters and to our colleagues from sales here present to answer questions. Thank you very much for making the time. I really enjoyed this. So again, thanks a lot, and I hope everyone enjoyed the event. I did enjoy it very much, and thanks for attending, and I wish you all a good rest of your day. So thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you.